Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can I make my site softer?
Can I make my site firmer?
Can we sleep cooler?
Sleep Number does that. Cools up to 8 times faster and lets you choose your ideal comfort on either side, your Sleep Number setting. Enjoy personalized comfort for better sleep night after night. And now, during our President's Day sale, take 50% off our limited edition bed, plus an extra $100 off all mattresses. And Saturday, only at a Sleep Number store or sleepnumber.com.
Darkcast Network. Indie pods with a dark side.
I'm going to be there one day, Mom. That's what Joe Pichler told his mom as a kid when they were watching the Academy Awards together. While many kids have said something like that, Joe actively worked to make his dreams come true. A role in a local commercial led to gigs in TV and movies, and his star was on the rise. After returning to his hometown of Bremerton, Washington to finish high school, Joe was making plans to return to Hollywood and pick up where he left off. But in the early morning hours of January 5th, 2006, he made a phone call to his friend and then vanished. When his car was found days later, police said the evidence pointed to suicide, but that didn't sit right with his family. For 20 years, the Pichler family has been saying that there's more to the story of Joe's disappearance, and that there are people out there who know more than they're saying. When a person goes missing, there's a special kind of pain in the not knowing. I want to tell the stories of those who never came home. Today, I want to tell you the story of Joe Pichler. I'm Kona Gallagher.
And I'm Ethan Flick.
And this is And Then They Were Gone. Welcome back, everyone.
Welcome back.
Thank you for joining us once again. I'm Kona.
And I'm Ethan.
And we're the husband and wife team behind this podcast. Each week, I tell you the story of an unsolved missing persons case. Ethan doesn't know anything about the case going into the episode and is here to provide his reactions and questions in real time, hopefully asking some of the same ones you have at home. Now, this is a case that I was shocked I had never heard of before.
Yeah, uncharacteristically, you gave me a little insight into this before recording the episode.
Yeah, because I never even tell you, like, what case we're covering before we sit down to record. But I did tell you because it was just so insane.
Yeah, and I had never heard of this. And when you told me, who the person was that went missing, I was floored.
Right.
Like, I could have sworn that he had been in movies after Varsity Blues.
Yeah.
But I guess he wasn't. I was totally wrong.
I know. I mean, well, technically he was, but not much later. And I doubt that you saw the movies he was in afterwards. So, yeah, it is so strange. And, obviously we've got a lot to talk about with it. But you're right. He is best known for playing James Van Der Beek's little brother in Varsity Blues, which was a gigantic movie.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until James Van Der Beek's untimely passing recently that I saw a few people bringing up Joe's disappearance. And so, of course, I looked into it. I was, dumbfounded. And it's interesting because I've seen a lot of people online also complaining about the amount of coverage that the Nancy Guthrie case is getting.
Mm-hmm.
And, they're saying that it's ridiculous that she's getting wall-to-wall coverage when a lot of other missing persons cases go unnoticed. And, listen, obviously, yes, do they have a point? They do. But this case that we're covering today shows that even direct fame isn't always enough to get people to pay attention, especially when certain conclusions are reached very early in the investigation. So putting this episode together was immensely challenging because there is so much unverified and contradictory information out there. And this is a case that's gone on for 20 years. Like, we just passed the 20-year anniversary of this not too long before we're recording, and there's been no movement on this whatsoever. It's so bad that while there were a couple of, like People Magazine, for instance, did an article marking the 20th anniversary, but it was just all rehashed info from 2006. Like, there was nothing new. There were no new interviews. I will say I think Joe's family has kind of stepped out of the spotlight in terms of his case, in recent years. But It was so bad that I was trying to verify that I was pronouncing his last name correctly, and I couldn't find a single video from like a news station or his family or anybody saying his name that, I can even be confident that I'm right.
Wow.
I did watch a video from a creator I respect who does a lot of work in the missing person space. The channel is called Lord and Arts, and I did watch a video he did on this case, and he pronounced it Pichler, so that's why I'm going with that. It's spelled Pichler. So I've also seen it pronounced that way. So again, I really did try, but I just couldn't find a verified source on even how to say his name right, which is just insane to me.
Yeah, it's crazy. That's crazy in missing persons cases in general.
Yeah.
But it's even crazier that, this is or was a famous actor.
Yeah.
A relatively famous actor.
But that's also why I think it's really important that we cover this because, as I said in the intro, the family does believe, or at least they did believe last time they publicly spoke, that, people know more than what they may have said in 2006. And because it's been 20 years, change in circumstances, change in technology. And in this case, I don't think change in technology would necessarily help, but change in circumstance might. And I think we just need to tell Joe's story. He deserves to not be forgotten. So before we get into the whole episode, though, we've had a bunch of people join us over on Patreon, so we'd like to take a moment to give some of them a shout out. Thank you to Victoria B., Laura Z., Nikki P., Lacey P., Natalie F., Susan H., Tabitha S., and Tracy F. Thank you so much for your support.
Thank you all so much.
As a reminder, if you'd like to get our episodes ad-free and, sometimes early, you can join us over on Patreon at any level, starting at just $2 a month. You'll also get a free copy of the ebook that I wrote. So now, let's get into the story of Joe Pichler. Joseph David Wolfgang Pichler was born February 14th, 1987 to Kathleen Pichler. And again, I believe his dad's name is John, but I couldn't even find that. His father was in the picture, though, but he doesn't really appear in news stories about his son's case. I was never able to find any interviews with him or anything like that. The Pichlers had 5 children altogether, and Joe was the second youngest. The family lived in Bremerton, Washington, which is a waterfront city across the Puget Sound from Seattle. Joe started acting as a young child. When he was 6, he was in a commercial for a Seattle department store. After that, it was off to the races. In 1996, when he was around 9, it says that the family moved to Los Angeles so he could pursue acting full-time, but I read other sources that said he lived in Los Angeles part-time. So I'm not sure if maybe, most of the family stayed back and maybe his mom came with him to Los Angeles part-time and he kind of went back and forth. I couldn't get a really good handle on the dynamics of that. But he did find success quickly, appearing in TV shows like Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman, and In the House. He appeared in his first movie that same year when he was 9 with a small role in the Wesley Snipes Robert De Niro movie, The Fan.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, I get it's a small part, but those are big name actors.
That's what I'm saying. And, and he was just a kid who started with a department store commercial. But yeah, so he found a lot of success early on. So Joe's star was definitely on the rise in Hollywood, but as he grew into a teenager, his mother, Kathy, was concerned about him falling into the trap of a child actor. So she had him move back to Washington so he could finish high school in a more normal environment. She was quoted in one article as saying that, they always tried to keep him grounded and make him have a normal life and just kind of treated him as they would, any other teenager. Like I said, they had 4 other kids, just with a job that most other teenagers did not have. So the idea was that he'd come back to Washington, live there for a few years, finish high school, and then he could choose his own path. In a January 2006 Associated Press article, Joe's mom, Kathy, says that Joe wasn't really happy about leaving California, but he handled it well. I'm sure it was a bit of a culture shock to go back to high school in Washington after starring in several movies, but he did it. He made friends and, he lived a pretty normal life, which is what his mother wanted.
And this is after Varsity Blues?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so after Varsity Blues, he starred in Beethoven 3 and 4,
Oh,
which were direct-to-video movies because the kids from the first 2 Beethoven movies had gotten too old.
yeah.
So he starred in those 2 movies. And I think he did a few other things after Varsity Blues as well. But yeah, then he moved back to Washington and graduated high school in 2005. So when Joe turned 18, he was able to access his acting money and decided to move into his own apartment in Bremerton. So basically, after he graduated, he moved into this apartment. Now, even though he had access to a good amount of money, he also took a full-time job at a place called Teletech, where he apparently worked in customer service, like helping people troubleshoot their phone bills.
Oh, that's bizarre.
I know, and it sounds like, frankly, a miserable job.
Yeah.
So, I'm not saying that you can't have like a normal job after being an actor or, before going back to being an actor, but like that just strikes me as an odd choice. But I guess he just wanted to stay busy.
Yeah, I guess so.
Even though he was putting down roots to some extent, he wasn't settling in Bremerton. He had braces at the time, and the plan was that once they were off, he'd head back to LA and start auditioning again. But until then, he had his independence, but, was still involved with his family. According to his sister Samantha, Joe still showed up for family dinners after he moved out. So 2 of his siblings at the time still lived at home, and his apartment was apparently across town. In the years since Joe's disappearance, there's been a lot of talk about his mindset in the beginning of 2006. Some reports say that he may have been dealing with depression, but his family says that Joe was in great spirits in the days and weeks leading up to his disappearance. According to his mom, Kathy, quote, "Joe is the kindest, most caring, and selfless person you could ever know," end quote. Now, a lot of families tend to paint a rosier picture of someone after tragedy strikes. I mean, it's only natural. But they weren't the only ones who were saying that. Daniel Smalley, who is one of Joe's good friends since childhood, agreed, telling the Seattle Times that Joe had a good head on his shoulders and he never talked about family problems or depression or anything of that nature. And I think that the reports saying that he was dealing with depression are only based on what happened. Like, I don't think there's anything that actually backs that up before his disappearance.
Yeah, so there's no known history of depression or anything like that.
None that I've been able to find.
Hmm.
None of his friends that I saw came out and said, well, actually, maybe he didn't tell his parents, but he was going through this, that, or the other. I didn't find anything like that. Daniel last saw Joe on New Year's Eve, less than a week before his disappearance, and said that they had a great night ringing in the new year and everything seemed normal. Now, as we get into his last known movements, we need to talk about what we're missing. In digging into newspaper archives and articles that are still online from 2006, one thing that struck me was how this truly never became a big story. Yes, it was featured on Access Hollywood and Entertainment Tonight and a few other national shows, but that was really within the first few weeks. After that, there's nothing.
And you think that possibly has something to do with the police response?
Yeah, I do. And, even going back into the newspapers.com archives, I couldn't find anything, like I said, after the first few weeks until the 6-month mark, when I believe it was the Seattle Times just did a little 6-month article, didn't have any new information, and that was it.
That's crazy.
Yeah. We do get some early interviews with family, but they only amount to a pull quote here or there. We never got a deep feature article, a documentary, an episode of Disappeared, nothing. So I don't have anything that really paints a clear picture of Joe's last days in Bremerton. So this means that a lot of the information that's currently out there is second or third hand, and apparently a lot of it came from MySpace pages, which are, of course, now inaccessible.
Right, yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Flashback there.
I know. So at first I found that surprising because, again, Varsity Blues was a gigantic movie.
Yeah.
And I would have thought that one of its stars going missing a handful of years later would have been a pretty big story.
Yeah, I mean, even in 2006, it was still like a pretty big movie.
Yeah.
It was really, it was one of those really impactful movies, I think, for our generation.
For sure.
Like, that's not, I don't know anybody that if I drop a quote from Varsity Blues doesn't, our age that doesn't get it.
Yeah. And yeah, again, it was really big on video, DVD, I guess, at that time in
Yeah,
2006.
right.
Like, people were still watching it. But yeah, it just wasn't a big story. And I do think that the way Joe's case is talked about online, you would think that it starts and ends with one idea. He left a suicide note. And the one-line summary of his case definitely sounds like that. An 18-year-old actor who had been forced to leave Hollywood disappeared, leaving his car abandoned near a body of water with a note inside saying that he wanted to leave his belongings to his brother. And, of course, the family says he would never kill himself, but what family doesn't say that? And look, obviously, we don't know what happened to Joe Pichler. Maybe he did take his own life. That is absolutely a possibility. But after looking more into this case, I don't think this is a cut and dry story at all. So let's get into what we do know. I'm so excited to tell you about our sponsor, Avocado Green Mattress, because they have certified organic mattresses with thoughtfully chosen materials that are designed to support healthier living and more restorative sleep, which I know we all need. Because better sleep changes everything. It changes your morning, your moods, and your energy. And their products are built to last with durable, high-quality materials. Avocado products are an investment in long-term vitality. They're not a short-term fix. Plus, you can be sure that you'll have no regrets because you'll get a sleep trial of up to 1 year to ensure that you're getting the best mattress for you. When it comes to what you sleep on, real wins. Real is better. Go to avocadogreenmattress.com/ATTWG to check out their mattress and bedding sale. That's avocadogreenmattress.com/ATTWG. avocadogreenmattress.com/ATTWG. Most of us are trying to get healthier, but we're guessing about which habits actually matter for our bodies, and we're all different. So what if you can measure how your body is aging and know exactly what to focus on next? Listen, I need instructions, and that's what True Diagnostic does. They test your biological age and key health markers, and then they give you a clear 90-day plan based on what your body needs without the guesswork. The test is so easy to take at home. They send you the kit, you take a little finger prick, send it in, and then you get this amazingly detailed report back that tells you everything you need to know. I'm so excited to get my next round of results to see if I've improved or what's changed in general since the last time I took it. I'm really interested in the True Health test, which tests over 105 biomarkers, including vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, and fatty acids to understand my system's health right now. True Diagnostic is trusted by top longevity clinics and health professionals, not just consumers at home. And right now, my listeners can get 20% off at TrueDiagnostic.com using code ATTWG20 at checkout. That's TrueDiagnostic.com and use code ATTWG20 for 20% off today. Choose True Age, True Health, or the combo kit as a one-time purchase or subscription. It's so cold, and the ice crashing off of my roof just shattered a table on my deck. So no, I don't really want to cook right now. Luckily, Factor makes healthy eating easy with fully prepared meals designed by dietitians and crafted by chefs. Ethan and I both have our own Factor meals coming, and I'm really excited because I'm a vegetarian, he's not, so we're able to get different things that we can have for lunch. He can take it to work and heat it up there. It's super easy, and they use quality functional ingredients, including lean proteins, whole foods, and healthy fats. Plus, they have 100 rotating weekly meals, so you're not just stuck eating the same thing over and over again, which honestly is why I can't meal prep. And they have many different options: high protein, calorie smart, Mediterranean, GLP-1 support, everything you could want. It's always fresh, never frozen, and ready in about 2 minutes with no prep and no stress. So if you want to try it out, you can head to factormeals.com/ATTWG50 off and use code ATTWG50 off to get 50% off and free breakfast for a year. Eat like a pro this month with Factor. New subscribers only, varies by plan. One free breakfast item per box for 1 year while subscription is active. The last confirmed contact with Joe happened in the very early morning of January 5th, 2006. Multiple sources agree that Joe had been with friends the night before, hanging out and drinking. Some reports say they were also playing Magic the Gathering, which is a game that he loved.
Wow, that's Magic. That's another throwback.
Yeah, and
my brothers and I used to play that all the time.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I mean before 2006, but
yeah.
Yeah. Wow, just like all of these like cultural throwbacks coming up in the story. It's crazy.
Joe also had quite the collection of Magic cards, including some that were apparently worth a lot of money, and he stored them in a fire safe under his bed. So a quick note about the drinking, which, I mentioned he was doing the night before. His parents were open about the fact that Joe had been experimenting with alcohol and recreational drugs. In fact, in November 2005, about 2 months before his disappearance, he hosted a party that had alcohol. Sounds like it got busted, and he was charged with providing alcohol to minors. It wasn't like a huge thing or, whatever. He was taking care of it. But actually, he disappeared before it was fully adjudicated, and he apparently ended up with a warrant after his disappearance.
It seems kind of stupid, but I mean, it's procedural.
Yeah, and apparently the police were like, no, let's keep the warrant on him because that way,
if he gets flagged somewhere else.
Exactly,
yeah,
because at the beginning they were thinking that he could have just gone off somewhere.
Right.
And so I think that keeping that warrant open was strategic in that regard.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So the point is that it wasn't unusual for Joe to hang out with his friends and have a few drinks. On the evening of January 4th, he was allegedly with his friends at his apartment playing Magic until about 1 a.m. on the 5th. The get-together broke up, and Joe drove one of his friends home. After he got home, and this is according to a website called The Cold Cases, he called a girlfriend in Oregon just after 2 a.m. It says that they spoke for 7 minutes and had an argument about weekend plans, but I've never seen this corroborated in a single other source. But it kind of does sound like something that would have come from a friend or a family member back on MySpace.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking maybe that's where that came from. But I just don't know. So you kind of have to take it with a grain of salt, especially since I've read other reports referring to an ex-girlfriend, but not a current girlfriend. So
it's somewhere in between there.
Yeah. What I do know based on multiple sources is that the last phone call Joe made was around 4:15 a.m. on January 5th. And that call was to a male friend. According to an interview with Joe's mom, Kathy, when she talked to this friend about the call, he said that he had been with Joe earlier in the evening and they had drank and written poetry together. In other articles that seemed to be based on MySpace posts, the friend said that Joe called him and seemed upset. Some reports say that Joe may have been crying, while others say he was inconsolable.
That is interesting. That's kind of a wide gambit of emotions that they're talking about.
I know, and none of that comes directly from Kathy. So the one article where she spoke about that phone call, she doesn't say anything like that. But according to the friend, he says that Joe told him he'd call back in an hour, but never did. After not hearing from him, he apparently called Joe back around 5:30 a.m., and his call went to voicemail. So that phone call just after 4 is consistently described as the last time anyone is known to have heard from Joe.
4 a.m. on January 5th.
Yeah. So when you put those things together, he was in good spirits earlier, then there was emotional writing, maybe, poetry, late night drinking, and then nothing. It paints the picture of a teenager who was awake too late, possibly a little drunk, maybe in his feelings, and then he was just gone. Now, the timeline after that phone call, though, really isn't verified. And I can't even, and I know this is going to get so frustrating for people listening, but I can't even definitively say when Joe's family realized something might be wrong.
Really?
Yeah. But it's because, again, like these interviews were not in-depth interviews with his family. But at some point over the next couple days, Kathy sent her son Matthew to go over to Joe's apartment and check on him. When Matthew arrived, he found the door unlocked and the lights on, which is very uncharacteristic, but no sign of Joe. They called Bremerton police to report Joe missing, but of course the police did not act quickly. I'm thinking this was reported on the 6th or the 7th, and Bremerton then waited 48 hours to open an investigation.
Wow. Okay.
Because it wasn't until January 9th, 4 days after that phone call, that Joe's silver 2005 Toyota Corolla was found in a parking lot of a taqueria near the intersection of Wheaton Way and Sheridan Road in Bremerton. According to a TV interview with Joe's mother and sister, in which they don't say their name, so I was never able to get a pronunciation, it was, I believe, Matthew who found Joe's car. It was a brother. Now, I've read reports that the taqueria that it was found behind was one of Joe's favorite restaurants. I've also read reports that one of Joe's friends was driving around with Matthew at the time his car was found. So when they got to the car, they found Joe's cell phone, but not his wallet and keys. According to the TV interview video I mentioned, there was a black glove on the ground next to the car. This is what the sister says. But at the time, they didn't think that it was significant. So they didn't pick it up. They didn't have police pick it up. It just kind of disappeared.
Like a winter glove, or
she just has a black glove. So yeah, I don't know if it's like a winter glove because it was January, or if it was like, a latex glove, or what we're dealing with.
Interesting. It also might not be related at all.
Exactly. We just have no idea. Now, the local media started to pick up on the story 2 days later on January 11th. On that day, a short local police blotter-style item in the Kitsap Sun states that inside of his car was a note suggesting that he, quote, may be planning to attempt suicide, end quote, according to detectives. Now, according to several reports, police found poetry and writings that included Joe expressing regret about not being a better role model or a, quote, stronger brother, end quote, and asking that his belongings go to his younger brother. Now, given this characterization, it's not confusing as to why a lot of people look at this case and just think suicide. But even in 2006, that was publicly contested by his family. In an AP article that was picked up by the Seattle Times on January 17th, Kathy told a reporter that a detective told her, quote, I don't know how to say this to you without sounding really bad, but basically, I think your son's dead and it could take months for him to show up in the water, end quote.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Like, that's an abrupt conclusion at the very beginning of this investigation.
Exactly. The car was found on the 9th. That article is published on the 17th.
Jeez.
However, Bremerton detective Robbie Davis, who ended up being the lead detective on Joe's case, disputes that claim. He told reporters that all he said was that state rules require that the department obtain dental records of any missing person who has not been found after 40 days. But that was way earlier than 40 days.
Yeah. That timeline doesn't add up.
It doesn't. Not only that, but the police blotter information that came out 2 days after the car was found mentioned suicide.
Right. So they're already jumping to conclusions. I mean, the note itself didn't say, I'm going to kill myself.
No.
Right? It was mentioning that he should have been a better role model to his brother, and then he gets all of my Magic the Gathering cards.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about the suicide note here in a second. But this whole case is a lot of the police kind of jumping to suicide conclusions and then later saying, no, I didn't.
Okay.
But even the first sentence of the AP article in which Detective Davis says this, that, he only said that he had to collect dental records, blah, blah, blah. The first sentence of that article starts out, Joe, quote, has been missing for a week after leaving what police have characterized as a suicide note, end quote. So, okay, let's talk about this note. According to Joe's family, everything that has been reported about it is a little misleading. While it was found in his car, it wasn't like on the dashboard or on the seat or anything like that. Kathy says it was buried with a bunch of other stuff.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, you would think, if it is a suicide note, it would be
out in the open.
Visible, right?
Yeah.
Easy to find.
I also got a hold of a scanned image of one page of the note because apparently it was several pages. And there's a lot of different stuff that's written on that piece of paper. In fact, it doesn't actually look like a note at all. It looks like a bunch of different thoughts that were scribbled down, possibly at different times. So I'm going to show you, and we'll upload this too. But I'm going to show you the note just so you can have like a visual idea of like what it looks like. Okay, so you looked at it.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's just like a bunch of.
Well, there's a lot of poetry.
Yeah, what
in and
looks like
around it.
poetry.
Yeah.
Exactly. Or song lyrics or, something.
Something. Yeah. I mean, it does. It doesn't necessarily look like an intentional suicide note.
Right.
It looks more like it was a piece of paper that he had laying around and would scribble down thoughts or verses that came to his mind, and then he'd leave the paper there. Like, and it's like, you had to invert it a couple of times because it's written in two different directions.
Yeah, exactly.
Depending on where it is, where you're at in the page.
Yeah, like, so if you look at the paper, half of it's upside down.
Right.
Yeah. So with that said, though, some of what's written on that piece of paper is concerning. One section that's not really reported on reads, quote, "The only reason I stayed alive was for the sake of loved ones," end quote.
Right.
So yeah, obviously alarming, right? Another part reads, and this is as best as I can tell because the handwriting is not good. It's very difficult to read. But what I believe it says is, quote, "Everything I have goes to Matthew's heart, Sarah Brockman, ... Matthew AJ, I would do anything for you. I have not loved more in my life. You were my older brother. This is for you only, no one else. I wish I was a stronger brother for you," end quote. Now, in the phrase, quote, "You were my older brother," "you were my" is underlined 3 times. When I first saw it, I thought that was a definite red flag because he's speaking in the past tense.
Right.
But from what I could find, I think Matthew was actually his younger brother. So to me, him underlining that reads more as, even though you were younger, you were my older brother, meaning that he was more wise or put together, or that he looked up to him, even though he was his little brother.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. If you're looking at the page and reading that, like I said, there's a bunch of other text that is then upside down. So if you rotate the page, what you see looks like poetry lines or song lyrics. Quote, "Unfinished thoughts, keep them close to heart, hope they will feel whole, but maybe not. Is this the reason I'm alive? But what is that? Confused, intrigued, unsure, reprieved." So while I can see why this may have been characterized as a suicide note because, the kid's missing, the car's abandoned, I can also see Kathy's perspective when she said, quote, "There was no goodbye," end quote.
Right.
Regardless, police seem to believe early on that self-harm was likely what happened here.
I mean, the note just seems like stream of consciousness to me.
I agree.
Thoughts that, like I said, he had a piece of paper laying around and something would come to him and he would scribble it down.
Yeah, and just because you're writing depressive shit doesn't mean that you're going to kill yourself.
Right.
Sometimes writing depressing shit is a way to avoid those feelings, you know what I mean? Or not avoid the feelings, but like get it out in a constructive way.
Right.
There were many searches done in the area where Joe's car was found, so let's talk about that area in relation to the suicide theory. There's a lot of water in Bremerton.
No, it's Washington,
It's Washington State. And where Joe's car was found is about a half mile from what's described as the Port Madison Narrows. Now, if you read Reddit threads or any discourse about this case, that's enough for people. There's a bridge there, and it's often said to be a popular suicide spot, so case closed. Except, while it may be somewhat of a popular suicide spot, it doesn't have a high success rate. Apparently, that bridge in particular, as well as other bridges nearby, aren't very high. When people jump off them, which they have, they usually survive and swim to shore.
Interesting.
In the rare case that someone does actually die, their body washes up, which is in line with what Kathy alleges the detective told her in the early days of the investigation. Furthermore, reports state that tracking dogs who were part of the initial searches found no trace of Joe anywhere near the water or the bridge. Plus, his car was a half mile from the water. While that was only about a 10-minute walk, there were plenty of closer places for him to park, including public parks and a community theater that were located right on the water. So why park a half mile away if your plan was to go jump off a bridge?
I mean, the only thing that I can think of is that, maybe there's significance there because it was reported that it was his favorite restaurant.
Yeah, maybe.
But
still,
that still doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. From the family's perspective, the police came onto this case with suicide in their heads, and that's the avenue they pursued early on. Kathy says that the police never fully processed Joe's car. They merely looked through it, telling a reporter, quote, "They haven't fingerprinted his car. They were in his apartment for about 3 minutes. They've done nothing," end quote.
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy to not fingerprint.
Yeah, and if the assumption is he jumped, then the question becomes where's the body instead of what happened and who saw what. And the thing is, Joe's body was never found. Armour makes getting dressed easy. With a clothing rental membership from Armour, you can build the perfect wardrobe with brands that are high quality, unique, and recommended just for you. All you have to do is take a 5-minute style quiz and select items from your personalized closet. Then they show up to your door in as little as 2 days. And let me tell you, I'm on the other side of the country and they still got here super quick. Then when you're ready for new clothes, you just swap them out. I'm an elder millennial, and so jeans are kind of like the thing that I can't figure out right now. And so in my new bag that I just got, I ordered 2 different pairs of jeans because I'm still trying to figure out what actually works for me. And I love it because I can rent high quality designer clothes without having to make that financial investment. Plus, there's no laundry required and no time wasted shopping. So right now, my listeners can give Armour a try and get up to 60% off of their first month. That's up to $150 off. Just visit armour.style/ATTWG. That's armour.style, ARMOIRE.style/ATTWG to get up to 60% off your first month and never worry about what to wear again. Try Armour today.
Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can I make my site softer?
Can I make my site firmer?
Can we sleep cooler?
Sleep Number does that. Cools up to 8 times faster and lets you choose your ideal comfort on either side, your Sleep Number setting. Enjoy personalized comfort for better sleep night after night. And now, during our President's Day sale, take 50% off our limited edition bed, plus an extra $100 off all mattresses. And Saturday, only at a Sleep Number store or sleepnumber.com.
I've got good news and bad news. Here's the bad news. Most protein bars are packed with sugar and unpronounceable ingredients. The good news? There's a better option. I'm Will, and I created IQ Bar plant protein bars to empower doers like you with clean, delicious, low-sugar brain and body fuel. IQ bars are packed with 12 grams of protein, brain nutrients like magnesium and lion's mane, and 0 weird stuff. And right now, you can get 20% off all IQ Bar products plus free shipping. Try our delicious IQ Bar sampler pack with 7 plant protein bars, 4 hydration mixes, and 4 enhanced coffee sticks. Clean ingredients, amazing taste, and you'll love how you feel. Refuel smarter, hydrate harder, caffeinate larger with IQ Bar.
Go to eatiqbar.com and enter code BAR20 to get 20% off all IQ Bar products plus free shipping. Again, go to eatiqbar.com and enter code BAR20.
So police didn't capitalize on those first days when witnesses' memories are freshest, when surveillance was more likely to exist, and when neighborhoods could have been canvassed in real time. Instead, in an article published on January 23, 2006, just 2 weeks after the investigation started, Detective Davis couldn't even definitively confirm or deny Kathy's accusation that they hadn't fingerprinted Joe's car.
He's the lead investigator. How does he not know?
The exact words from the article are, quote, Davis said he believed the car had been dusted for fingerprints, but couldn't say for sure because he was alone in the office and the investigator's report was not available Monday, end quote.
The hell does that mean? Like, you don't know what's going on in your own case?
Yeah. And what's really annoying is no reporters followed up on that. Like, there's never a later mention of the fingerprints in any news article. Like, that's it. So we never find out definitively if they dusted for prints.
I mean, did they even, I know you said they did a cursory search, like a visual search,
Yeah.
but like, did they even look for blood or anything?
No, because of something and we'll get into it in a second about something that Kathy said later. So in that same article where he was like, yeah, I don't know, I don't have the report, he told the reporter, quote, "We have done just about all we can do," end quote.
Yet you didn't actually fully process the car.
Or he doesn't even know if they fully processed the car. According to the family, police never interviewed the friends that Joe was with the night before he went missing.
Man, they really did. They were just like, suicide.
Yeah,
That's
his
it.
body will wash up eventually.
Wow.
So apparently it was like a group of around 6 kids. And according to the family, only 2 have ever spoken to the police.
I mean, there's so much information that they could have gotten there.
So much. We do know that they got Joe's phone records, and Detective Davis said he was monitoring Joe's bank account, social security number, things like that. Because like I said, one of the theories then was that he could have gone off somewhere, right?
Right. And we know that his wallet wasn't found in the car.
Yeah, and neither were his car keys, which,
Right.
makes sense if you're walking off voluntarily, right? Like
Right.
you would just by habit have your keys in your wallet with you, even if you were planning on killing yourself. Like I can see just still carrying those things, just not even thinking about it, So they obviously looked into suicide. They obviously looked into him just leaving voluntarily, but it doesn't appear that they ever looked into the possibility of foul play. And to me, those are the 3 main things that could have happened.
Right.
Suicide, which they looked into and didn't find any definitive proof of. Running off voluntarily, which they found absolutely no proof of.
I would say that they didn't even look into it because an easy thing would have been to pull CCTV footage from the restaurant.
Yeah.
And they didn't.
Yeah. And I did read somewhere that Kathy said that they, like the family, tried to get CCTV from like a local nearby 7-Eleven.
Right,
And
but
it had already been recorded
exactly.
over.
At that point.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, you're right. I mean, I say that they looked into it in that he was monitoring his bank account and social security number, but I think that's about it.
I mean, even if they had gotten that footage, it would have given them, a direction of travel at least.
Right. Yeah.
Like if you see him walking in the direction of the bridge, okay, maybe that bolsters the suicide theory. If you see him walking in the other direction, away from the bridge,
then what?
Yeah, then what? Now your suicide theory is out the window.
Yeah, well, and it gives you other places to search because they did, like I said, they did do searches. They had tracking dogs out at one point. I think in one early search, there were like 150 people there because a bunch of volunteers showed up. So yeah, you're absolutely right. If a video would have shown him walking in a different direction, they could have searched in that direction.
Right.
Now, there's a 27-page Web Sleuths thread on Joe's disappearance that was started in 2008. There was an earlier one, but it got taken down by moderators because it apparently had a lot of unfounded accusations against people who they were naming. In this thread, a few users pop up claiming to be in contact with Joe's family. They act as a go-between, feeding information to web sleuths and vice versa. One of these people was a user who went by Dazzlin' Deb SD. On October 23, 2008, she said in part, quote, "I spent the entire day with Kathy yesterday here in San Diego, California. They have begged law enforcement to interview the kids who were last seen with Joe. They have begged LE to get all cell phone records and text messages sent to and from Joe's phone. They begged LE from day one to take the car into forensics and examine it. They tried to get the case on AMW, America's Most Wanted, and when LE was called by the producers, LE said not to bother airing a show on this because it was a suicide. LE hasn't done anything for this family except rebut all of their theories and tell them they are working on it. Working on it how, I wonder, end quote. Now, I don't think that this statement that she made is 100% accurate. I do believe that police were able to get Joe's cell phone records because, again, his mom was talking about that 4:15 a.m. call very early on.
Yeah.
But there's a chance that the friend could have contacted Kathy directly and told her about it. But I also got the impression that she saw the number on the phone records and called it herself. But that also doesn't necessarily mean that that's because police pulled them. You know, Joe is 18. He very well could have been on a family cell phone plan.
Right.
So she could have just had access to those records, you know, and just pulled it up herself. And so if that's the case, then this web sleuth user could mean that police never went to the phone company to get the full records to see where Joe's phone had pinged.
Yeah.
Because that's not something I've ever seen mentioned in any of the coverage, and it's definitely a question I have. Joe's car was found several days after he was last seen, and his cell phone was in that car. I want to know if that cell phone was there the entire time. Was that car there the entire time in that parking lot?
Yeah, exactly.
Did the restaurant just let a random car chill in their parking lot for 4 days without having it towed or, you know, calling the police or anything?
Right.
I mean, maybe, you know, maybe the restaurant didn't give a shit. I don't know. But getting the cell phone pings could show one way or another if Joe's car was there the entire time. Because if Joe's cell phone had been pinging elsewhere between the 6th and the 9th.
It changes the timeline.
Yes.
Right.
And it really throws the, you know, I walked down to the bridge and jumped off theory kind of out the window if the car's just driving around, you know? The thing she said about America's Most Wanted, you know, about what law enforcement said, of course, can't be verified. But I do believe that a short blurb about Joe was featured on an episode at some point. But as I mentioned earlier, everything I've read indicates that the friend group as a whole was not questioned by police. In addition, the family alleges that there were key pieces of evidence that were overlooked by police. And again, this is all alleged, and I have no definitive sources to back this up. Now, I already mentioned the black glove that was found near Joe's car, and that did come directly from Joe's sister. But again, we have no evidence that it was related to the case at all. The family also says that when the car was released to them, there was vomit on the passenger side of the car.
What the hell? On the outside of the car?
No, on the inside, on the floorboard.
Huh.
So when you were asking me if police searched for blood, I'm pretty confident saying no, because they apparently didn't even notice that there was vomit.
I mean, to not notice that or to not mention that ever, that clearly shows that they barely looked in the car.
Right. So the family wanted to have that vomit tested for DNA, but police never did it. They wanted to know if it was Joe's vomit or if it belonged to someone else. Now, neither scenario would bring definitive answers, but it could lead to another avenue of investigation.
Right. I mean, if it's not Joe's, that means somebody else was in his car.
Exactly. You know, fairly recently.
Yeah.
Right? And yeah, that doesn't mean that they did something to Joe, but maybe that's a person you'd want to chat with.
Right.
The Pichler family also claims that some of Joe's rare and valuable Magic the Gathering cards were stolen. And when I say valuable, I mean that they were in the 5-figure range. So if they were stolen, that's absolutely something that could be a motive for foul play. Now, I've read different sources saying that cards were missing from the apartment. I've read elsewhere that said that he had a binder in his car that had empty slots. But, you know, just because they weren't found doesn't necessarily mean that they were stolen either.
Right.
Joe could have sold them, given them away. Any number of non-nefarious things could have happened to those cards. Now, another, I guess, set of accusations you could say is about Joe's car. One is regarding the friend who was driving with Joe's brother as they looked for it. The story there is that the friend kind of drove around, made a few turns, and was like, oh, hey, look, there's Joe's car behind this Mexican restaurant.
Oh, so almost like he knew where it was.
Exactly.
Okay.
But, you know, if that was one of Joe's favorite restaurants, it could have also just been a logical place to look.
Yeah.
The family has apparently also stated that one of Joe's female friends, who might have also been this girlfriend / ex-girlfriend that we've heard about, told them that she went to Joe's car to remove items from it that may have been embarrassing. Now, one version of this story is that she had a spare set of keys and removed the items before police arrived, while another version says that she went to go remove the items, but police were already there. But both scenarios beg the question, how would she have known where the car was? Some stories also state that the items she removed or wanted to remove from the car were hallucinogenic mushrooms, but that, of course, is unverified, and police have never said, oh, yeah, we found
Drugs
mushrooms in the car. Yeah.
Right. Well, they didn't even find the vomit in the car.
Right. So, none of it proves anything, and I think all of that came from MySpace, so it's who knows?
Right.
But what it does tell me is that there were more avenues of investigation that police should have gone down in 2006. Instead of telling a reporter, we've done just about all we can do 2 weeks into it. Because while there definitely is not definitive proof of foul play, there's also not definitive proof of suicide.
Right. Yeah, that note is barely, yes, there's concerning thoughts in it.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of thoughts in it. And it's jumbled and not left out in the open.
Right.
And it goes back to my point, about the restaurant, the significance of the restaurant. If you're going out of your way to leave your car at your favorite restaurant, then you would think you're staging things to be found if you're going to commit suicide. One of which would be a note.
Right.
Saying, I'm leaving all of my things to my brother, whatever. But that note was buried somewhere in the car. Not out in the open, not sitting on the dash, not sitting on the driver's seat where it can clearly be found.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like suicide to me.
Yeah, and Joe's body has never been found. Search dogs didn't trace his scent to the bridge, and the writings don't contain an explicit "I'm going to kill myself" statement.
Right.
Now, of course, that doesn't mean that suicide's impossible. It just means that you can't declare that it's proven. And, here's the part that I always wrestle with in these stories where suicide kind of is on the table. Families often say there's no way.
Right.
But families can be wrong. Not because they didn't know their loved one, but because accepting that possibility is just psychologically unbearable for them. But you know what? Sometimes families are right, and the system leans on suicide because it's the cleanest narrative when you don't have evidence pointing anywhere else. At the beginning, like I said before, the idea of a voluntary disappearance was floated even by his own family. His sister told a reporter that he may be too embarrassed to come back, and this is very early on. Meaning, she was thinking maybe he split, he just wanted to clear his head, and then, saw that he had been reported missing, and it was this big hubbub, and then was just, embarrassed and didn't want to come back home.
It's a possibility.
And yeah, to me, it was an optimistic hope by a family member who just wanted the best possible outcome early on. After 20 years, though, I give that basically a 0% chance of being what happened.
Right. No, if he left on his own, there's direct intention to not come back, obviously. And yeah, okay. It's obviously easy to say that 20 years later, but...
Yeah. But, he was planning on going back to Hollywood. He was chasing fame to a certain extent.
Mm-hmm.
It makes 0 sense that he would have instead chosen to leave all of his money and belongings behind and live in hiding for the next 2 decades. Kathy wrote an essay for the Surviving Parents Coalition in which she said, quote, "Joseph is not a runaway. That's the only thing I know for sure about his disappearance," end quote. And I agree with her. Now, when I talk about foul play, I also include the possibility of an accidental death and a cover-up in that. Maybe Joe's experimentation with drugs was a little more serious than has been alluded to. Maybe he had an overdose and his friends covered it up. And that could fit with them maybe knowing the location of the car.
And the vomit.
And hell, even the missing magic cards, because that could have simply been a later crime of opportunity.
Mm. Bottom line is we don't have any answers about this, and it's frustrating because there was so much left on the table by the police.
Yeah.
The interviews with the friends, the surveillance footage, do we even know which direction the dog's tracked? There's just so much information that's not known and that the police didn't bother to pursue because they very quickly decided that this was a suicide and they're not going to bother taking the time to thoroughly investigate things.
And I think by the time they realized that, oh shit, maybe this isn't a cut and dry suicide because his body never washed up like they thought it would.
It was already too late.
It was too late. And so he is now listed as endangered missing, but nothing more was really done. And again, that early suicide assumption really is what has affected the news media coverage in this case as well. And it's why I almost didn't do this story because, like I said, I looked into it because I came across something online right after James Vanderbeek died. And I said, oh my God, some kid from Varsity Blues went missing. That's insane. I looked into it. The very first article I read, I was like, oh, so he killed himself. Like, that's sad, but, not really something I think we should do an episode on. I really just had to read more into it and go, what? This isn't a closed case at all.
Right.
And yeah, I don't think that this is a case of a family just not wanting to accept reality.
Well, there's too many unanswered questions.
Right.
And like you said, there's no definitive proof one way or the other about anything.
There truly isn't. And I think the family, deserves more than just to be looked at as like, these sad people who can't admit that their, son killed himself or whatever.
Right.
So yeah, while we obviously don't know what happened to Joe Pichler 20 years ago, I agree with Kathy. I think his friends know more than they've said. I'm not saying that they killed him or anything, but I don't think Joe's disappearance happened in a vacuum. Whether it was an accident, murder, or even suicide, I do think there's information that people have been holding on to for decades. These people were scared teenagers at the time. But now they're approaching middle age, and we can only hope that as the years pile on, so does the need to get it off their chests. Joe didn't just vanish off the face of the earth, and the little bit of information we do know takes us in different directions. We have a car near water, an early morning call, and words on a piece of paper that could be sorrow, it could be art, it could be goodbye, or it could be none of those things. We have a family saying you didn't look hard enough, and a detective who's saying we followed procedure. And then it's been 20 years. It's hard. If we can label something suicide, then we can stop asking questions. If we can label someone as a runaway, we can stop searching. If we can label something tragic but solved, then we can breathe again. But Joe Pichler's case doesn't let anyone breathe. And it deserves to be talked about, and it deserves to be solved. Joe Pichler has been missing from Bremerton, Washington since January 5th, 2006. He is a white male with light brown hair and hazel green eyes. At the time of his disappearance, he was approximately 6'2" and 170 pounds. He had metal braces on his top teeth, and he has a circular tattoo of a red Star Wars emblem on the inside of his right forearm. If you have any information about Joe Pichler's disappearance, please contact the Bremerton Police Department at 360-308-5400. You can see all the sources for this episode along with photos and videos at our website, andthentheywere.gone.com.
And be sure to follow us on social, And Then They Were Gone Pod on Facebook and at ATTWG Pod on Instagram and TikTok. If you like what we're doing, please subscribe and consider leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It will help new listeners find us. And the more people that listen, the more chances we have of bringing someone home.
And we'll see you here next week for a brand new episode.
See you next week.
And Then They Were Gone is hosted by Kona Gallagher and Ethan Flick. All research, writing, and editing is done by me, Kona Gallagher. Theme music is The Stork by Ketsa. Additional music is provided by Kai Engel. And Then They Were Gone is a Little Monster production.
Hey, you can do it!
Carvana's so easy. Just a click, and we've got ourselves a car. See?
So many cars. That's a click-tastic inventory.
And check out the financing options. Payments to fit our budget. I mean, that's...
Clickonomics 101.
Delivery to our door?
Just a hop, skip, and a click away.
And bought.
No better feeling than when everything just clicks. Buy your car today on
Carvana.
Delivery fees may apply.
Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can I make my site softer?
Can I make my site firmer?
Can we sleep cooler?
Sleep Number does that. Cools up to 8 times faster and lets you choose your ideal comfort on either side, your Sleep Number setting. Enjoy personalized comfort for better sleep night after night. And now, during our President's Day sale, take 50% off our limited edition bed, plus an extra $100 off all mattresses. And Saturday, only at a Sleep Number store or sleepnumber.com.